Hi Reddit. I'm 37, and this is the story of how I realized my family had quietly decided I was no longer part of the picture, and how I found out the hard way that sometimes the people who were supposed to love you most can be the cruelest. A bit about me first. I'm the middle child in my family, sandwiched between an older brother, Colin, and a younger sister, Maya. Growing up, our family always had this unspoken hierarchy, though no one ever admitted it out loud. Colin was the shining star, captain of the football team, the smart one with the scholarship, the perfect son who could do no wrong. Maya was the baby, the spoiled one, wrapped in this protective bubble by my parents. And then there was me, the invisible one, the one who was reliable, steady, and mostly ignored. Our parents weren't abusive in the traditional sense, but they were the type who measure love in accomplishments and appearances. If you didn't meet their standards, you didn't really get noticed. For years, I accepted my role as the background child. I didn't complain because it was easier to stay quiet than to fight a losing battle. Over time, that dynamic became a pattern. Colin excelled, and my parents showered him with praise and opportunities. Maya was coddled through every misstep. Me? I worked a decent job, paid my bills, and mostly kept to myself. I tried to join in family events, tried to make conversation, tried to be normal. But the subtle digs and dismissive looks never stopped. Every holiday was like this too. Christmas mornings filled with grand gestures for Colin and Maya, and me? Well, I got a polite nod, maybe a passing glad you're here, but mostly, I was just there to fill the chair. This year, though, something felt different leading up to the holidays. Invitations to family events were sparse and vague. Colin seemed distant on the phone. Maya was busy with other plans. But I chalked it up to busy schedules and tried not to overthink it. Then Christmas morning came. I woke up early, as usual, expecting the familiar buzz of messages and calls. But my phone was silent. No Merry Christmas texts. No group messages from Mom organizing plans. No calls from Colin or Maya checking in. I checked my phone repeatedly, thinking maybe the signal was bad or the messages hadn't come through. But no, nothing. Around noon, I finally texted Colin. Hey, are we still on for later? Just want to make sure. Hours went by without a response. I called Mom's number, straight to voicemail. Maya's phone went straight to text message without ringing. My heart sank. Something was wrong. But what? Later that afternoon, Colin finally replied. The message was short, cold, and left me reeling. We didn't think you'd want to be included this year. No explanation. No apology. Just that. I sat there staring at the screen, the words sinking in deeper than I expected. That message wasn't just about Christmas plans. It was a final confirmation that, in their eyes, I was now someone they could simply erase. I didn't reply. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I made my own plans. I called a few friends, people who'd been there for me through tough times, the ones I considered family by choice rather than blood. We arranged a small dinner, nothing fancy, just good food, laughter, and company where I wasn't an afterthought. That evening, as we sat around the table, warm and comfortable, I took a photo. Nothing extravagant, just a snapshot of simple joy. I posted it on social media with the caption, "Chosen family means never feeling like an afterthought." What happened next blew me away. Within minutes, my phone lit up with messages from family. But these weren't messages of concern or regret. They were angry, bitter, and filled with judgment. Colin was first. Posting that on Christmas? Really? Trying to make us look bad. Mom followed with a long text accusing me of being dramatic and petty, saying I was ruining their holiday by making a public spectacle. Maya's message was sarcastic and cold. Glad you found your people. Hope they're better than us. I realized then that I was dealing with more than just neglect. I was facing a family who wanted to punish me for refusing to be invisible. That night, as I sat in my apartment, my phone buzzed nonstop. Their messages escalated, from passive-aggressive digs to outright attempts to guilt me into silence. They expected me to apologize, to explain myself, to grovel. But I wasn't about to do that. Something inside me shifted. For the first time in years, I felt like I had a choice, to keep accepting their coldness or to stand up and take back my worth. After posting the photo with the caption about chosen family, I expected some backlash. But what I wasn't ready for was the extent of it. For the first few hours, my phone was flooded. Not with apologies or invitations to talk things out. No, it was mostly barbed texts, cold accusations, and what I can only describe as an emotional siege. Colin sent a message that basically accused me of deliberately humiliating the family on social media and called me petty for even bringing family issues into the open. I didn't respond. My silence only seemed to make him more furious. Mom's texts poured in too, and they were a twisted mix of guilt trips and thinly veiled insults. She claimed I was choosing drama over family, and that my actions were selfish and hurtful. She said things like, "You're making it so hard for us to reach out because you won't let go of the past." The ironic thing is, none of them had reached out before Christmas, so the hard to reach part was laughable. Maya's messages were passive-aggressive at first, but soon turned into outright mockery. She started tagging me in stories and posts that implied I was lonely or desperate for attention. I could feel the sting behind every one of those. But here's what really hurt. None of them even tried to talk about why I was being excluded in the first place. I spent the days after Christmas going over every conversation, every slight, every missed call, trying to find what made them decide this was okay. Was it because I hadn't called mom enough this year? Because I didn't gush over Colin's promotion as much as they wanted? Because I hadn't supported Maya's art shows in the way they expected? I realized none of those things mattered. It wasn't about what I did or didn't do. It was about control. In their eyes, I was supposed to stay in my assigned place. The quiet middle child who never stirred trouble, who accepted their favoritism and moved on. When I posted that photo, I was crossing a line. I wasn't supposed to have a life that looked happy and fulfilling without their permission. I wasn't supposed to show that I could be okay without their approval. And that's when it became clear this was punishment. Not for anything I had done, but for daring to step outside their narrative. The next few weeks were a constant barrage of manipulation. Colin blocked me on social media, but still sent occasional texts filled with thinly disguised threats. He hinted that I was burning bridges I'd regret, especially with the family business. Yes, the family business, another layer to this mess. You see, Dad had built a small company that had become moderately successful over the years. Colin was being groomed to take it over. Mom talked endlessly about how important it was that Colin was the future of the company, how it was the family legacy. But me? I was never even considered. Not because I wasn't capable, but because I wasn't the right child. After Christmas, I heard through a friend that Colin had been telling people I was disloyal and ungrateful, trying to poison my reputation professionally. That was the line for me. One evening, about 2 weeks after Christmas, I decided to confront this head-on. I called Colin. He didn't pick up. I left a message, polite but firm, asking if we could talk. No response. The following day, I sent an email to my parents, laying out my feelings honestly. I didn't ask for anything other than a conversation. The reply? A curt note from Mom telling me that some wounds take time to heal, and that I needed to reflect on my behavior before they could consider reconciliation. It felt like a slap in the face. Meanwhile, Maya was playing a different game. She started tagging mutual acquaintances in social media posts that hinted at me being dramatic and toxic, painting me as the villain who had drifted away. People I thought were friends started asking me what was really going on, and I found myself explaining the situation over and over. The worst part? Some of those people started believing the story I hadn't even told, that I was the problem. Despite all this, I tried to keep my head up. I focused on my friends who had welcomed me warmly that Christmas. They were my refuge from the storm. But the family's behavior escalated quietly. It was subtle at first. Canceled invitations to work events, whispered comments when I was around relatives, cold shoulders at mutual gatherings. Then came the direct sabotage. I discovered that Colin had contacted my employer, planting doubts about my reliability and attitude. Nothing overt, but enough to make my boss pause and question my commitment. I was blindsided. I confronted Colin about it in an email, demanding to know why he would do something so cruel. His reply was chillingly calm. "I'm just protecting what's ours. If that means making sure you don't drag the family name through the mud, so be it." That phrase, "what's ours," echoed in my mind for days. Because it wasn't just about the company. It was about the family's control, their need to own the narrative and erase anyone who threatened it. That's when I realized this wasn't just a family disagreement. It was a war, and I had been drafted without consent. But here's the thing about wars. Sometimes the weakest soldier can change the course. I wasn't going to beg for their acceptance anymore. I wasn't going to apologize for existing outside their expectations. I started gathering evidence, screenshots of the messages, records of the calls, proof of Colin's interference at work. I reached out to a few legal contacts, quietly exploring what my options were. At the same time, I continued to build my own life away from them, with people who actually cared. And then, just when I thought things might plateau, they did something even more shocking. They sent a formal letter to my workplace, not just a casual whisper anymore, but an official complaint alleging that I had breached company confidentiality and was a risk to their business. The letter was full of half-truths and outright lies. That night, after reading the letter, I sat in my apartment alone, the weight of everything crashing down. This was bigger than family drama now. They had crossed a line, and I wasn't sure how far I was willing to let them go. After reading that formal complaint from my family's lawyer, I sat motionless for a long time. The letter was cold, calculated, and cruel. My own brother and parents were accusing me of betraying the family business, painting me as some kind of insider threat. They'd twisted innocent emails and meetings into evidence of misconduct. I wasn't naive. I knew they were capable of manipulation. But this felt like crossing a point of no return. It was a clear message. I was no longer family. I was an enemy to be destroyed. But instead of breaking me, it awakened something I hadn't felt in years, a fierce determination. The next day, I contacted a lawyer I trusted, someone with experience in family business disputes, who could help me navigate this mess. I laid everything out: the exclusion from family events, the sudden accusations, the subtle sabotage at work, and now this official complaint. My lawyer didn't sugarcoat it. She said my family was playing hardball, using the business as a weapon to isolate me completely. But she also told me there were ways to protect myself, ways to fight back, and she'd help me do it. While she prepared a response to the formal complaint, I began documenting everything. Every message from Colin where he called me disloyal. Every email I could find that hinted at him trying to sabotage my reputation. Screenshots of Mom's manipulative texts and Maya's petty social media posts. I realized I needed more than just words. I needed proof. Evidence that would show their true colors if this ever went public. Meanwhile, I doubled down on the relationships I'd built outside of my family. That Christmas dinner wasn't a one-time thing. It became a new tradition. Friends who had quietly supported me for years became my chosen family. They listened when I needed to vent, offered advice, and reminded me what real support looked like. They also helped me professionally, putting in good words, sharing opportunities, helping me rebuild my reputation after Colin's whispers had caused doubt. It was humbling to admit I needed help, but that support became a shield, one stronger than I ever expected. Back at work, things were tense. The complaint had put a cloud over my position. I was called into meetings, asked uncomfortable questions. I stayed calm and honest, never defending myself with anger, but always firm. My lawyer advised me not to engage directly with my employer about the family's complaint, so I let her handle official communication. I also quietly networked behind the scenes, looking for new roles, new paths. I didn't want to be trapped in a place where my own blood tried to derail me. With my lawyer's help, I sent a well-crafted response to the family's complaint. It was factual and professional, pointing out the lack of evidence and the obvious personal motivations behind their accusations. I also included evidence of Colin's and Maya's attempts to sabotage me, showing a pattern of harassment rather than any real wrongdoing on my part. The letter was carefully worded, making it clear I wasn't going to be bullied or silenced. What I didn't expect was how quickly the family pushed back. Within days, I started receiving more aggressive messages. Mom sent a long, venomous email accusing me of destroying the family from the inside, warning me that I was on a path to self-destruction. Colin's messages became more threatening, suggesting I was risking not only my job, but my entire future if I continued down this road. Maya, emboldened by their support, began posting public comments that mocked me for playing the victim and making enemies out of family. But I had already stopped listening to their poison. Instead, I used it as fuel. I met with my lawyer again, and we started discussing what I could do next. The idea was simple. If they wanted a war, I was ready to fight it, strategically, and without losing myself in the process. One of the most unexpected parts of this whole ordeal was realizing how many people had quietly been watching the family drama from the sidelines. Some were old family friends who'd seen the favoritism and toxicity, but never said a word. Others were former employees of the family business who had their own stories about Colin's ruthless tactics. I reached out to a few discreetly and started building a support network, people willing to testify or share what they knew if things ever went legal or public. I wasn't interested in public drama at first. I wanted to keep this between us, solving things quietly and professionally. But when Colin started trying to undermine my reputation in social circles and professional networks, I realized I had to push back publicly, carefully, with tact. I began sharing small, truthful posts about the importance of loyalty and fairness in business, about standing up to toxic family dynamics, without naming names. The messages resonated. People reached out privately, telling me they'd been in similar situations or had heard about my family's behavior behind the scenes. It was around this time that the tone of the family's attack shifted. Their cold, calculated tactics gave way to desperation. Mom started showing up unannounced at my apartment, claiming she just wanted to talk. I declined every visit. Colin sent mutual acquaintances to try and persuade me to come back to the family, warning me I'd regret burning bridges. Maya posted a public video accusing me of betraying the family and being selfish. I kept my distance but kept recording everything. Then came the message that changed everything. One evening, I received a text from Colin, this time not angry or accusatory, but chillingly calm. We're ready to take this as far as it needs to go. You can keep pretending you have friends, but this family is everything. If you want a war, we'll give you one. At first, I was shocked, but then I smiled. Because for the first time, I wasn't alone. I was ready. I sat down with my lawyer that night and told her I wanted to proceed, not just to defend myself, but to take the fight to them, to expose the truth about their manipulation and greed. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't be quick, but I was done being their victim. When I finally told my lawyer I was ready to take the fight to my family, she nodded slowly, a mix of relief and quiet determination in her eyes. This won't be easy, she said, her voice calm but firm. And I knew she was right. Family battles run far deeper than most people realize. They aren't just about legalities or cold facts. They're tangled up in years, sometimes decades, of emotional manipulation, favoritism, and outright cruelty. The kind of cruelty disguised as love or concern, the kind that's so subtle it takes years to even notice it's there. But this time, I was done being invisible. I was no longer the silent middle child, the one who had quietly accepted her place in the family's twisted hierarchy. I was prepared, organized, and most importantly, ready. Ready to defend myself, ready to expose the lies, ready to reclaim the life they tried to steal from me. Our first move was to file a formal response to the family's false allegations at my workplace. My lawyer drafted a detailed countercomplaint, carefully outlining the harassment I'd endured from Colin, the constant undermining, the whispered accusations, and the deliberate smear campaign orchestrated by Mom and Maya. We included screenshots of messages, witness statements, and documented evidence showing their attempts to tarnish my professional reputation. This led to an internal investigation at my company that lasted several weeks. Investigators interviewed colleagues, reviewed emails, and cross-referenced timelines. Slowly but surely, the truth emerged in black and white. I had done nothing wrong. The allegations were baseless, driven solely by personal grudges and the family's desperate attempt to control the narrative. It was clear I had been the target of a coordinated effort to discredit me. When the company publicly cleared my name and issued a formal apology for any distress the false accusations may have caused, it felt like a small but powerful victory. They also reprimanded anyone within the organization who had allowed themselves to be swayed by the family's influence. It was more than just a statement. It was a public declaration that I was not the villain in this story. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, my lawyer and I quietly began sharing evidence with a few trusted family friends and mutual acquaintances, people we believed might help finally shed light on the true dynamics at play. Over time, stories emerged, whispered confirmations of what I'd endured for years. Mom's blatant favoritism toward Colin, Colin's ruthless business tactics, and Maya's cruel, public shaming of me. The carefully maintained facade of a perfect family started to crack, revealing the toxicity hidden beneath. After months of legal back and forth and the growing social fallout, I reached a painful but necessary decision. I was done. Done with the manipulation, done with the lies, done with hoping for something that would never come. I chose to cut all ties with them. Mom sent one last email, a string of empty threats disguised as apologies, all designed to make me feel guilty and small. Colin kept trying to reach me through mutual acquaintances, warning me of family consequences if I didn't fall back in line. Maya launched a few more bitter social media jabs, but even her energy eventually faded into silence. I blocked them all. With the family drama behind me, I finally had space to focus fully on the life I wanted, free from their toxic expectations and constant undermining. My friends became my true family. We started new traditions, built a community where respect and kindness weren't conditional on success or appearances. I poured time and energy into my career and personal growth, rediscovering passions I'd long buried. I even started a small side business, something I had dreamed of but never pursued because I was too busy trying to live up to their impossible standards. With the support of my chosen family, that venture grew steadily, and for the first time in my life, I felt proud on my own terms. Looking back, it's startling how many people had sensed something was off all along. They had witnessed the favoritism, the cruelty, and the manipulation, but fear or loyalty had kept them silent. Once the truth began to surface, those people started speaking up, quietly at first, then more openly. The image my family had worked so hard to maintain began to crumble. One particularly revealing meeting with a former employee confirmed what I'd long suspected. Colin had a habit of bullying staff and deliberately trying to sabotage my work behind the scenes. It was a vindicating moment, a clear acknowledgement that the problem was never me, but the toxic environment they had created and protected. I now understand how deeply those family dynamics had poisoned my life. They were not just neglectful or dismissive, they were actively hostile. Their cruelty was cloaked in phrases like concern and family loyalty, but in reality, it was control, manipulation, and selfishness at its worst. I do not forgive them. They made their choices long ago, and I made mine. To this day, there is no reconciliation. I haven't spoken to Mom, Colin, or Maya in over a year. They live their carefully curated lives, pretending the past never happened, as if the damage they caused could simply be erased with silence. I, on the other hand, live mine, free, independent, and surrounded by people who truly care. If anything, losing them was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because sometimes, family isn't the people you're born to. It's the people who choose to stand by you. Thanks for reading. Share your thoughts in the comments. If you like this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this.